Hi, everybody. I am actually in person this time from TIFF, and I'm going to be speaking with two of the ladies behind Modern Horror. We have director Nicole Bazuin and Andrea Werhun. You are a multi-talented person behind this story, so welcome.
Thank you.
So for just to kind of situate ourselves, I already mentioned your roles, but maybe you could each talk about your role in film, but also if you want to share anything else about yourselves for folks.
Sure. Well, I'm the director, co-writer, and co-producer of Modern Horror. I'm also the editor.
Oh,
So you could say I've worked a few different
Yes,
roles on
definitely.
this film, and it's been a long time in the making, a long time coming. This film. Andrea and I have been collaborating for years.
Yes.
We made a book together that Andrea wrote and I illustrated through photography. That's also called Modern Horror.
That's right.
And we made 2 short films together featuring Andrea. So this is sort of like the cinematic magnum opus that we've made together.
Excellent.
I'm not sure how I'm going to top that. I'm Andrea.
This is partly your story.
Partly, yes.
Yes, absolutely. So, because we already mentioned, I don't need to repeat, but we already mentioned this relationship you have in terms of the story starting off as a book, a memoir, and having a journey on the small screen, well, not small screen because the shorts were at the film festivals, but what was maybe going back to that first bit of conversations you had about creating Andrea? You want to talk about your story in terms of being a sex worker and what that life is like, and then you kind of helping tell that story in a visual format. So from the beginning.
From the beginning. Yeah, so I was a University of Toronto student when I started escorting with dreams of becoming a writer. And I also knew I wanted to be a performer as well, but I definitely wanted to write. And there was something that shifted in me when I started escorting and realizing I was living these stories that I kind of desperately wanted to tell people, but confronting the stigma made it impossible for me to be able to tell those stories on the page, with my real name. It became obvious that I might have to use a pseudonym if I wanted to tell my story. And that was really hard to accept. But I did keep my stories, the few that I had written, sort of to myself. I didn't publish them. And then when I quit escorting, I moved to a farm and Nicole came to visit. And I was regaling her with these stories. And we both were like, okay, we have to make something. We have to make something together because of our shared skill set.
Right.
And so what that initial collaboration was took many forms in the beginning. We weren't sure what it was going to be. One of them was a graphic novel because Nicole is, on top of being an excellent photographer and like a phenomenal director, she's also a bonkers illustrator.
I could see that.
Yeah. And so that was one idea for us that would allow me to tell my story and also maintain my anonymity. But in the end, we settled on this sort of memoir that was an art book, my stories and her photography.
Yes.
And even at the time, we weren't entirely sure whether I was going to come out or not. But it became clear over time that if I wanted to have like the full ownership of my story and to really be grounded in its authenticity, that it was important for me as a writer and as an artist to come out with my story as a sex worker.
Yeah. And I could imagine what it might have been like to just think about you're using your real name. You're actually like the vulnerability that comes with having to open yourself up in this way. But it's done really because you were in good hands, I guess,
Yes.
with someone that you trust. It kind of comes across quite beautifully in the book, which I'm familiar with, and also like the short films. So I'm not going to dissect the short films because we're here to talk about the actual feature. But maybe each of you could tell me a bit about how did you envision from the shorts moving into a feature, and if you already knew that this would become more feature length at any point.
I think in our mind's eye, in our hearts and dreams, we always envisioned doing a feature film. That felt like something we were building to. And I think, it was such a helpful thing, though, that we had other projects we had collaborated on. And each of those formats has its strengths and its things that we were excited about, what we could do with a book, what we could do in a short that captures, people's attention in this very focused time frame. But yeah, it's adapting the book. It's adapting Andrea's stories. She's a phenomenal writer. But yeah, she's also an incredible performer, an extremely engaging storyteller. It would feel like a shame for her not to have like this cinematic venue in which to like show that side of her as well. So I think, yeah, for that, in that way, and for me being like a filmmaker, it just felt like we had to do this. But I think too, it's like there was so much source material to draw from with Andrea's stories. And that felt very exciting because with this longer format, it's like, okay, we can actually get into more stories. Humor is something that was really important about adapting the work. I think Andrea's like a natural comedian. I love to do like fun, campy, vivacious kind of stuff. So that was really important. But with this longer format, it's like we can actually have the real estate to tell a more fulsome tale that has like the light and the dark and move through that and have space for like nuance. So I think that's what's made this so exciting. And it was definitely like what we always wanted to work towards. Yeah.
That makes sense. Maybe, Andrew, you can talk a little bit about the fact that now it's a bit of a hybrid, this film, where you get to showcase your acting chops and with reenactments, and you get to speak to dear ones, like your loved ones, as well as colleagues. So it's a bit of a hybrid documentary. What was it like, that discussion with the two of you, perhaps, or, whoever else collaborated in kind of thinking of this is what maybe this could look like?
I think it was always really important for us to have the documentary element be present, to root the story in its authenticity and truth as a first-person journey.
Yes.
And just like in the stories, I'm talking directly to the audience.
Yes.
And
I like that.
I know it's nice, but I think the advantage of having a feature film that can expand upon the work is that through interview, we can expand the universe here to include colleagues and loved ones and clients.
Yes, exactly.
So that makes for an even richer experience. That's where I think it goes beyond the book. The book is very special, but I think the feature film, where it takes things to the next level, is that it expands the experience of a singular sex worker into a variety and a diversity of experiences to ensure that the viewer understands that there is no one sex worker experience. And that was really important for me, because there is a tendency to see a story of a single marginalized person and be like, that's every marginalized person's journey. And that just doesn't make any sense. We're not a monolith. We all have our own individual journeys. And at the end of the day, what unites us is the fact that we're human beings who all deserve to be, loved and respected and treated with dignity, and to have access to equal rights. And the opportunity to interview my partner, I think is such a teachable moment for a lot of people who are in the audience who may be in relationships with sex workers, or maybe feel afraid to engage in meaningful relationships with people who have that experience. And then, of course, there's my mom. And I know that her inclusion in the documentary was always very important to us. And I know that it's, whenever people talk about the film, they're always like, your mom, it's like the highlight. And I think we're both so grateful that she was able to give herself authentically and honestly to this film.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. I think there were several moments in the film that were so heart-wrenching in a good way, because even regardless of whether it's sex work or not that you do for a living, we have these dynamics with our loved ones and conversations that we don't always have. And this is sort of like a way to say, it's okay. They may not walk away from us. And that was so important in seeing your mother being so supportive of you from the beginning.
Supportive, but also with her own misgivings.
That's true.
Not condoning the work that I've done necessarily, not being thrilled that I'm a sex worker, but at the same time, never stopping loving me.
Right.
And that is such an important display that I think, like, I know after we did the interview with her, she called me and she was like, I just hope that other parents of, adults who do sex work watch this and feel inspired to maybe like have better relationships with their kids.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, our relationship with parents always have to evolve, right? As we continue to evolve in our lives. I'm so glad you shared that, because I wanted to know what it was like for her after the fact and kind of being sitting with those feelings, I'm going to be mindful of time because I don't want to run out and I have other things I want to talk about, but you have great collaborators along the way. You worked obviously with an intimacy coordinator, but you had a social worker along the way. Can you talk a little bit about kind of to have that involvement of support systems for the film?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like our intimacy coordinator was like an MVP on this production. She felt like the hardest working intimacy coordinator in showbiz at times, just because, we did have quite a few scenes to dramatize that involved clients and involved intimacy. And it was, I had a great experience. And and it was a great support. And I don't know if you want to add to that too.
Yeah. In addition to the intimacy coordinator, we had a sex worker trauma-informed counselor on set who was there for all the 2 scenes specifically that dealt with sexual assault. Because I'm in this unique position in this film, not only like playing out these sexual assault scenes, but I'm the one who lived them. I'm reenacting something that happened to me.
For sure.
So I definitely needed some like extra support from someone who understands. And that person's name is Jen Porter. And I've worked with Jen Porter over the years. She used to be my boss at a sex worker advocacy organization for 4 years. So I love her and trust her with my life. And I know how incredibly giving and generous she is as a listener and as someone who can care for sex workers. And so it was such a gift to have her there. We also, before we started shooting, we had someone with sex work experience who's a social worker who gave us training on sensitivity and ensuring that like we weren't entering this project with like any harmful biases. So like from day one, we were, really trying to build a project that was supportive of sex workers, that was going to allow us to tell the most fulsome story possible without these hidden prejudices getting in the way and making anybody vulnerable.
And you also included friends and colleagues, people who continue to work and have worked in sex work. What was that discussion with them, bringing them on board and them also being vulnerable with you and each other? Did you know who would be the few that would join, or?
We had like a good general sense of most of them. Like the cast sort of shifted over time based on people's availability and, but every single one of those people are people that I am friends with, that I collaborate with, who are my colleagues, who are my friends. And so they were all really excited to be a part of the film. And we were thrilled to have them. And we're so grateful for their openness and honesty and vulnerability that they show on screen, because, at the end of the day, we do all have the same mission, which is that we want to be able to operate in the world safely and without fear.
One other thing that I think also is quite striking about the film is the visuals, like the tone and the look, and even the way the visuals kind of help the story move along. So maybe you can talk about it. We'll start with you, Nicole, and then having this gorgeous palette, complemented by also music too, which I think is kind of cool. When did that come to you in terms of, or both of you, about the look and feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is, again, the benefit of starting with a book, doing short films, kind of starting to world build of what the world would be for modern horror, the feature.
Yes.
And like our director of photography, Nina Jasic, I have collaborated with numerous times, and we both are obsessed with color. And she calls it story world when we're inside like these sort of dramatizations of the book. And I think that's a good word for it, because it is this idea of like, you've got the authenticity of the interviews and that aspect, but then the immersiveness of these, reenactments or dramatizations. And so that we can kind of, immerse you in Andrea's storytelling. And yeah, I think so color, stylization, kind of making it feel like Andrea's book come to life was the notion too. Like we literally jump inside the book. So that was important. And I think too, just like tonally, like color, elements of fun, kind of, again, going against, maybe some of the representations that feel more like dour or drab. We wanted this to be a sex work representation that is colorful and full of life, and that there's like a sense of joy in the way that it was made and crafted. And I think it's also like really feeling like you're experiencing a piece of art, which has to do with the theme of telling your own story and making art about that. And I think that was important as well for the visual style. Yeah,
I know when it comes across, we will be seeing more of you on screen, Andrea, because I mean, it looked like it was, as much as there's a sensitive areas of the story, it still looked like you were well supported and enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, well, I sure hope it's not the last you see of me.
I mean, the camera loves her. So, I think that's fair, to a safe bet to say. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it would be nice, right? I wanted to ask you about your premiere. Congratulations. I know it's been sold out and it's a kind of a hot ticket still for the festival here at TIFF. So tell me what's going through your minds last night. Was this last night? No, wasn't it? You're seeing you sat for the film and then you're getting all that love through the audience. What was that like?
Collective dreamy sigh is how you would caption that moment. But yeah, I think, for me, it's like, also being the editor of the film, there was this whole stretch of this project that felt quite isolating, when you're with the work. And of course, I'm sharing it with Andrea along the way and sharing with other members of our team, but it's like still kind of isolating. And I was so thrilled to finally be like, it's out in the world and an audience is seeing it. And it's, on the big screen at TIFF. It was like definitely the perfect, ideal venue and place that we wanted to debut the film, because it's a Toronto story made by Toronto people. And, so it meant that we could have, cast and crew in attendance. Right. And that felt really special. Yeah.
What was that like for you, Andrea?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a bit overwhelming, and there's a bit of like shock too, and being blown up so big and having a big room of people enjoying it. But I really loved feeling the room laugh. I could really like feel how funny the film was, and also those dips. Like there's just peaks and valleys in the film, parts that are funny, parts that aren't funny, and just feeling like we had the audience there with us, and it was so rewarding.
I bet. I mean, it's such a good feeling. I'm an audience person, and I always like it when everyone else is feeling what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So I can imagine for you it's magnified. Congratulations again. I know the film's going to have its journey before it gets released, hopefully soon. Is there a website or is there a social media tag that I should kind of be aware of for the film?
I mean, #modernhorror is always good. There's a modernhorror.com. So yeah, those are
for anyone else that wants to follow along, that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think our personals are probably the best for following that.
Sounds good. I'll be sure to tag people in the description of this video. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Heidi.
Thank you.